All right, hello there, everyone. Kyle Massa with you here from Wildcard MTG, and today on the show, we are talking about a Mad Titan. We are talking about Thanos from the new Marvel set. So I've got it up here on my screen. Here we go. Yes, so Thanos came out only a couple days ago, actually, as I record this. Basically just got revealed. I was going to say spoiled, but this was official. So let's take a look at Thanos. All right, so he is Mardu. So he is red, white, and black for a 4/4 eternal villain with death touch and lifelink. And he's got a new mechanic called Power Up. So the Power Up cost is one of each colored mana symbol plus the colorless mana symbol. So remember, that's different from generic mana, right? Which means that you can use any mana to cast it. This is colorless, so it specifically must be colorless. So you've got to have technically 6 colors of mana, which is pretty wild. And you put 2 +1/+1 counters on Thanos, and then you choose odd or even. Destroy each other creature with mana value of the chosen quality. And so then it explains Power Up. It's kind of an interesting new mechanic. It's sort of a riff on like Monstrous or Exhaust, which was itself a riff on Monstrous. And the idea is that it's a one-time cost that you can pay, but it's reduced by when you play the creature with the power-up cost, it's reduced by the mana in the creature's mana cost, right? And it's not mana value, which is interesting. So basically, you can play Thanos on turn 3 for red, white, and black, or you can play Thanos on turn 6, or earlier, of course, if you have some ramp. But you can play him for the same cost, and then all you need to pay his power-up cost from there is colorless and blue and green, right? Because that's what's left. So definitely an interesting creature and an interesting ability, interesting commander. And he's also quite flavorful because, of course, all my Marvel knowledge is based not on the comics, but on the movies. I have actually seen every Marvel movie released to date. This is currently, June 2026 as I record this. So there will be more, I'm sure, if you watch it later. And I've seen all the shows, every season of every show except for the newest season of like Daredevil. And I did miss some of the animated stuff, but I don't know. I don't really count that. So anyway, MCU, I'm actually pretty up to date. But comic lore, kind of here and there, what I hear on podcasts and stuff. So anyway, this is kind of flavorful because I think that there was a comics run, or, part of the comics was that Thanos was in love with Death. Death herself, so death touch, you get it, right? And the odd or even thing, that was specifically in the Marvel movies, and of course Thanos basically saw overpopulation kind of ruin his home planet, so he decided to assemble the Infinity Stones, which are on that gauntlet that he's holding up. And the idea was that he was going to just indiscriminately, randomly wipe out half the galaxy. So you're not quite doing it randomly here, but you are essentially wiping out half the battlefield. So that's the flavor. So that's definitely a hit there. But the question is, how do we play that to our advantage, right? How do we come out ahead when that ability resolves? Well, I immediately thought of Obosh, and I'm kind of bummed because I went on EDH Rec and there are already 2 decks with this specific pairing on there. So I thought I was like, kind of thinking outside the box or outside the Titan, if you will. But apparently I wasn't. Other people are already onto this. But Obosh is a 3/5 for 5, and he costs 3 generic and then a black or red and a black or red. So 5 total, legendary creature, Hellion Horror, companion, and we'll get to companion in a second, but basically the rest of the text says, if a source you control with an odd converted mana cost would deal damage to a permanent or a player, it deals double that damage instead. So, and the companion clause for Obosh is that you can only have odd CMC cards, now mana value, and lands in your deck. So if you don't know Companion, I actually just did a Companion video, which was Aragorn and Karuga, which I will link down below. They're really fun, and they're not like super heavily used in Commander. I was actually surprised to see that Obosh is according to EDHREC, is the second most used companion as a companion that there is on the site, right? They do appear in decks without being companions, but if you companion it, Obosh is the second most used after, the name is escaping me, but it's the one that basically gives +1/+1 to cats and like 4 other types, but I think people mostly use it for cats. So I was surprised to see that, and that's because, this is an especially restrictive clause and rules in order to companion it. And, what do I mean by that? So the idea is that the companion gives you a deck building limitation. And if you meet it, you can use that card as your companion. And that's very similar to your commander, right? It starts outside the game as the game begins. And it used to be that you could just pay the mana cost and put it straight onto the battlefield. They actually retconned that, and this is the original printing, so it's not here on the image that I have on screen. But they fixed that to now it costs 3 mana, and then you get to put it into your hand, and then you can play it from your hand at a later time, right? So it's not the command zone, like when it dies, it doesn't go to the command zone. There's no commander tax or anything. But it is essentially an extra card in your hand. And, obviously it gives you an amazing payoff if you've fulfilled the requirement. So this is what I immediately thought of this, because obviously what we're going to do is we play Thanos and we have Obosh, and now our deck is all odd cards, right? By definition, it has to be if Obosh is our companion. So whenever we activate Thanos, we say even, and we never lose creatures from that. And I'm going to assume that our opponents lose a lot of creatures. Maybe not their whole board. They probably have a lot of odd mana cost creatures as well. But we should come out ahead on that exchange pretty much every time. So let's look at some more of these payoffs for odd converted mana costs. So the first one is also from Ikoria. It's called Lava Brink Venturer. It is 2 and a white for a 3/3 human soldier, and as it enters, you choose odd or even, and it gets protection from whatever you chose, right? Yeah. So that's obviously awesome. Protection, they don't really print anymore because it's super annoying and overpowered. But basically, there's some acronym for it that I'm blanking on, but it can't be blocked by, enchanted by, damaged by, or one other thing, or I think targeted by anything that it has protection from. So you're always going to pick, you might pick odd if there's some sort of odd costed thing that you're afraid of, but I think most of the time you're just going to pick even, because this is essentially the anti-even deck. Then again, you might pick odd now that I think of it, because if Thanos can destroy all the evens and all that's left is odds, then Lava Brink has protection from those. So either way, this is a nice little inclusion here. Another one, Yannette, Cryptic Sovereign. It is 2 white, blue, and black for a legendary Sphinx. It's a 3/5 with flying, vigilance, and what is that? Menace. And when Yannette attacks, you reveal the top card of your library, and if it's odd, right? Yeah, so you basically get to cast it for free if it's odd, or you draw it if it's even, but it's always going to be odd in this deck, right? And finally, we have Twins of Discord, which is 7 mana for an 8/6. It's an Eldrazi, and whenever you attack, you choose odd or even, and creatures with the chosen value can't block this turn. And each, each other colorless creature you control has Bloodthirst 2, which is kind of a cool throwback mechanic. Honestly, I can't remember exactly what it does. I think it's like when you deal combat damage, you get 2 counters. Look that one up for me because I don't. They didn't give me the reminder text. It's not my fault. So these cards are obscure. Obviously, I can barely read them, which is my fault because I can never read this dumb screen. But I also don't really know them on site because they're super obscure, obviously. I mean, these care about things that you don't normally care about, and that's what Thanos is asking us to do. And that's why I recommend getting them on Mana Pool, because that's where I get all my weird, obscure cards. I do have an affiliate code with them, but they're a really cool website. They're partnered with stores all over the country, I think all over the world. And you can look up what cards you're looking for, and they show you what stores have them, and then you pick what you want, you pay, and then they'll mail them right to your house. It's super cool. So what are some other cards? We've got damage, right? So Obosh doubles our damage. So we've got Sawblade Scamp, which is 1 mana 1/1, Phyrexian Imp with haste. And basically, if you cast a non-creature spell, it deals 1 to each opponent. I'm sorry. It's... Oh, that's so weird. Oh, okay. I sort of shorthanded this card when I was reading it, but basically it accumulates oil counters, and then you can remove them to deal 1. So if you repeatedly play them, you can ping everybody for 1. But remember, if Obosh is out, you're doubling that damage, which adds up very quickly. So we've got the same idea with this Whelp, which is a 2 in a red for a 2/2 flyer and a dragon, and it's from Foundation, so it even has the reminder text on what flying does. Why couldn't they not do that for Bloodthirst? I don't know. But whenever you cast a non-creature or a dragon, deals 1 to each opponent. We're going to have a lot of non-creatures, not very many dragons, but again, that's going to double the damage. And also, since even if it attacks and deals damage as a flyer, it's going to be dealing 4 instead of 2, as long as Obosh is on the table. And then finally, I included Ragavan, who is quite expensive. So if you can, if you have a Ragavan in your collection, he's between like $60 and $80 for good reason, because he's certainly one of the best 1-drops ever printed. It's 1 red for a 2/1 monkey pirate. And when he deals damage to an opponent, they exile the top card. You can play that card, and you get a treasure token, and then it has dash for 1 in a red, which means that you can essentially, for 1 in a red, you put him on the battlefield. He has haste, and then you return him to your hand at the end of the turn. So I like him, obviously because he's just kind of an outrageous 1-drop. But the other nice thing is that he actually has this alternate cost, so you can do something on turn 2 when you normally, because, obviously we don't have 2-drops in this deck. So that is a trick that you can do with Obosh that you used to do in Ikoria Limited, where, for example, that set had cycling. So you would pack cards with cycling so that, again, you could use the mana on your off turns, if you will. Assume you're playing a land every turn. So that way you can just do something with that mana instead of doing nothing with it. In the words of the great Uncle Rico, you might as well do something while you're doing nothing, right? So where was I going with that? You'll notice that the deck is going to be heavy on 1-drops and light on 3-drops. And that's for a few reasons. Because first of all, our commander costs 3. Now we'll get into later that you don't always want to cast Thanos on turn 3, but if you do, he's way above rate. I mean, he's a 4/4 with Death Touch and Lifelink on turn 3. That's excellent. So that's one reason we're not playing as many 3-drops, so we have that option. The second reason is that we'll get into it, but actually a lot of our ramp and some of our best ramp is actually going to be 3 cost. And the final thing is that 1-drops work really well in this deck because, as I was saying before, on turn 2, when you have 2 mana, you don't have even cards to cast. But if you have an opening hand that has Sawblade Scamp and Ragavan and another 1-drop, what you can do is turn 1, play your land, play Ragavan. Turn 2, play your second land, then play the Scamp and your other 1-drop, right? So those add up really well, and they give you a kind of a perfect little curve. So that's why we're going to go a lot heavier on 1-drops than a normal commander deck would. So this is the ramp package that I was talking about. So we'll go through these quick. Forgotten of Shaman Ways is 2 and a green for a 2/3, and it taps for any combination of mana, but you can only spend it to cast a creature. And then it has basically biorhythms stapled onto it, which is pretty cool. Then there's the Cabbage Merchant, which is also 2 and a green for a 2/2 human citizen. And when your opponents cast, does that say non-creature? Yeah, when they cast non-creature spells, is that? Yeah. You get a food token. When you take combat damage, you lose a food token, but then you can tap 2 foods to add 1 mana of any color. And finally, we have Supportive Parents from Spider-Man. I think this is Miles Morales' mom and dad. I don't know why they're working with Thanos now, but hey, they are. It's 2 and a green for a 3/3, another human citizen, and you tap 2 untapped creatures you control to add 1 mana of any color. So back to Thanos, he's a 3-drop, but a lot of times we want to use him as a 6, right? Because we were talking about the power-up ability. And if you play him, he takes... Essentially what you can do is, on turn 6, if you have your 6 mana lined up, you can play him and use his ability in the same turn, which is a lot better than... Most of the time, I would say it's going to be a lot better than just playing him and hoping you get to untap, because, obviously he's going to ruin a lot of boards and your opponents probably aren't going to let you do that. So often what we want to do is play him and activate him in the same turn. These 3 cards let us do that, and they actually let us do it as early as turn 4. And I had to specifically look for them because there are a lot of cards that they cost 3 and they ramp you for 2 mana, but pretty much all of them add mana. It's any mana of the same color. And of course, Thanos, as we've been saying, has 6 different colors. The colorless is sort of a color, but essentially has 6 different colors. So those cards don't actually cleanly ramp from 3 to 6 mana, assuming you hit your land drop. So that's why I picked these 3, and I really did a pretty thorough Scryfall search, and this was the best I could find. Let me know if you see anything else, because I'm going to be writing an EDH Rec article about this later, and I would like to include them. So let me know if you can think of any others. But obviously, so like the Shaman, you play it on 3, then pass. On turn 4, you play your 4th land, and then you now have 4 plus the 2 from Shaman. And if they're all the different colors, we can play Thanos and wipe half the galaxy, right? So, and that's the cleanest way to do it. Cabbage Merchant does work if, where did I put this? Yeah, so if you cast him on turn 3 and opponents, if in that turn rotation, your opponents play at least 4 non-creature spells among them, and they don't attack you, then you would be able to tap, you play your 4th land, then tap 2 food for 1 of any color, tap the other 2 food for another of any color, and you have Thanos. Obviously, that's not going to happen a whole lot, but this card is really good as it is, so I like including it just on the off chance that you do get to make that work. And finally, the Supportive Parents, again, work with all our 1-drops. Because if you have a 1-drop on turn 1, plus those 2 1-drops on turn 2, that's 3 creatures. Now on turn 3, if you play Supportive Parents, you now have 4 creatures, right? So you can tap 2 of them to add 1, tap 2 to add another. If you have your next land drop, again, you're ramping right into Thanos. So those are a few ways to sort of speed run Thanos out. That mana is tough, right? So we've got Cascading Cataracts, which is an indestructible land that taps for colorless, but you can pay 5 to add 5 of any combination of colors to your mana pool. So obviously that gives you the colorless you need, or it gives you the WUBRG you need. I also have Alchemist Refuge, which is a land that taps for colorless, and for a blue and a green, it essentially gives your stuff flash. I like that just because it's a colorless land with a very useful ability, beyond just adding colorless. So kind of achieves 2 goals there. And then finally we have Grand Coliseum, which is a land that enters tapped. It adds colorless, or you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color, but you take 1 damage. And Coliseum's uninspiring, but I think it's necessary just because, again, it's essentially a land that taps for 6 colors if we're counting the colorless as its own color. I got all these from Ulalek, the fused atrocity or something from Modern Horizons 3. I actually have that deck, so I'll link that one too if you want to check it out. But yeah, if you go on Ulalek's EDH rec page, it's actually a very similar commander because it cares about WUBRG and colorless, so you can get some good ideas for a mana base from there. Now, there are some tough matchups, this is rounding it out, for Thanos and Obosh, specifically tokens. The interesting thing is that you'll see a reminder on a lot of cards that reference odd and even. 0 is even. So if we are picking on, oh my word, I'm just realizing that, 0's even. That's funny. I made this whole slide thinking that for some reason you could not go after tokens, but I totally forgot that we're the odd deck. We're going after evens. So yeah, you can kind of disregard this. I had this weird mental block here where I thought for some reason that, Thanos wouldn't wipe tokens, but he totally would because they're even. Okay, so these are some cards that are good against tokens. Turns out you don't really care about tokens because you can blast them away whenever you say even. So we're just going to skip this, I may or may not cut that from the final. I might just leave it in. Odd times. That was an odd end to the video, I would say. So we've got Thanos and Obosh. That's the deck. Like I said, I do have an EDH rec article coming soon that I will have a chance to edit, unlike this video. So that'll be good. So I'll link that and you can check it out. It'll have like a full deck list in it for Mr. Thanos. What else did I want to tell you about? You can also get those cards from Mana Pool. As I mentioned, I've got an affiliate code down below. If you use it, it just lets them know that I sent you, and I really appreciate it. And finally, I'm also on Substack. So if you like this video, if you like seeing kind of weird, quirky decks like this, I write about Limited, I write about Commander, I write about Cube, I write about pretty much whatever I am having fun with and whatever is tickling my fancy, so to speak. And if you go there, you can support me for, starting at like $5 a month, and it just kind of keeps everything going, and I would really appreciate it. So anyway, sorry about that little gaffe there, but I don't know, it was kind of funny. Anyway, thank you so much, and I will catch you next time. Bye-bye.